Everyone. It's Emil. It's Emil. Me, Emil. Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. My sidekick here, Kulintang Gong. He's got a smile on his face. He just saw the January 6th hearing. He's wearing his SeaWorld Kills t-shirt in case you need a reminder why it's not the ideal destination of your summer vacation. Anyway, welcome to the program. I'm the aforementioned Emil, and we are Amok. This is my takeout, Emil Amok's takeout, my takes on all things considerable. And boy, if you didn't watch the January 6th hearings today, which the sixth one, number 6, it was the best one yet because it had just one compelling witness. And that compelling witness will go down in history as a super American hero, a super American hero of democracy. You'll see her referred to as a 25-year-old, but apparently she just had a birthday. She's 26. Cassidy Hutchinson. Cassidy Hutchinson, who is as conservative as they say, as all get out, as they say. She's worked for her career in Washington, has been as an aide to some of the top Republicans, Scalise, Ted Cruz. She got a job in the White House to work for the chief of staff, who was Mark Meadows. And she was, as they say, in the room where it happened, or at least close. She is no just hearsay parrot. She is a person, a young person, so her memory is good. And also her idealism hasn't been jaded by power. She's a young person in her career, and she didn't spill the beans today. She told the truth, which, you don't really have much here at the January 6th hearings. You don't have much of that kind of truth. You have some people coming forward, but the long list of people who have either refused to testify, have risked indictment, people who have come in to the January 6 hearings and have pleaded the fifth. General Flynn pled the fifth on something as simple as this question: do you believe in the peaceful transition of power? I must plead the fifth. This is a question of if you believe in one of the fundamental principles of our democracy, the transfer of power, the peaceful transfer of power. He had to plead the fifth on that. That should give you a sense of what kind of deep doo-doo a lot of these Republicans are swimming in or trudging in, because they can't even answer a question like that without invoking the Fifth Amendment. They refuse to answer on the grounds that it may incriminate them. The peaceful transitional power. What do you know, General Flynn? So Cassidy Hutchinson was a breath of fresh air. Not just that. She was more than that. She was like, if breaths of fresh air could be nuclear, she was that. She provided the committee and anyone who listened for the first time real concrete. Now, I'll say proof. She testified. Now, some people say, oh, it's not proof. It's still hearsay. She heard. No, she saw. She saw and heard directly a lot of these things that she testified to. Some were based on maybe a phone call that was made to someone, and phone call was relayed to her. But this is real stuff. And I think maybe the biggest thing is that this points to real potential criminality. You'll just keep in mind that the January 6 hearings, this is a legislative body. They're not looking at it from a criminal perspective, but that's the Justice Department's job. And you kind of know maybe they're listening over there, or you hope, because there are two things that need to be proven if there's criminality on the part of the highest person, the most powerful person in the land, and that'd be Donald Trump. And that is, was there intent? You got to prove intent, and you have to prove if there was, well, as I said, the Justice Department, they're thinking if there's enough that was said today that might at least point to the president. I think if you heard today, you heard enough to say, there's a lot of things here that we didn't know about. And now that we know about it, I think at the very least, if you're just an American listening with an interest in your democracy, the big question is, forget about criminality, because criminality may be one of those things where, let the lawyers, let them decide, if there's intent and if there was some kind of corruption there that would lead to some kind of criminal charge. But the basic question for anyone who voted, or anyone who's registered to vote, anyone who is a citizen who can vote, was Donald Trump, did he display behavior that would indicate he was unfit to be president? And not just on January 6th, but before then and after then, and certainly after he's out of office. He's still talking about running in 2024. I think the stuff that was revealed today in the committee by Cassidy Hutchinson is enough to make anyone of sound mind and body, of whatever party, say, Donald Trump, president? Are you kidding? If that's all this hearing accomplishes, I think that's a lot. Because to this day, you still have Republicans who still look to Donald Trump as he's the guy. He's the man. We're mega. He's the guy. Which, this is a bipartisan committee. By the way, we got Liz Cheney, we got Adam Kinzinger, two committee members, but all the key witnesses to date, aside from Ruby Freeman and her daughter, Shay Morris, who are African American, all the key witnesses have been Republican stalwarts, Republican operatives. They have been Trump loyalists. Even the state secretary of Georgia, even all the guys who testified about Trump believing that there were stolen ballots. He had his own attorney general. He had election officials who were Republican who still say, we'd still vote for Trump. We just didn't want him to win by cheating. Still. All right, those are pretty damning. But today, from this Republican aide, who was she was chief of staff, right, of the chief of staff. She was the top aide to the chief of staff of Trump, Mark Meadows, whose office was just down the hall. She has credibility, and she testified tremendously today. So just some of the things that were just explosive today. She testified that Trump knew his supporters had weapons and that Trump encouraged them to march to the Capitol. All right. And they played tapes saying, look, here are these guys. They have AR-15s. They are tying up, these implements of violence to flagpoles. They're just, they were up to no good. These were supporters at going to the rally. And then Trump wanted to go as well. I think that was one of the big things, that Trump knew that this was happening. He knew that these rioters were violent. They were armed. And at one point he said, he used an expletive, but he said, get the mags, the magnetometers, which test for, weapons, get them out of there. Trump essentially was saying, they're not out there to get me. And Trump just wanted to go and wanted to let them go onto the rally because he knew the rally was going to get violent. So some criminal attorney or some prosecutor can look at that and say, criminality here? Remember, we have a lower bar. Our bar is this the kind of guy you want to see as head of the free world, as head of our democracy? It sounds like he's losing it. And then, and this is another one of the moments in Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony where she retold the story, and we'll play it, about how Trump tried to wrestle with his top Secret Service detail member, try to, get the wheel, and he was made. He said, "I'm the effing president." He wanted to go. He had to go, maybe to see what he hath created. Right? This was ego. This is a guy you want to be president. You want him to be president again. It was bad enough that he was president once. More things out of the today's hearing. Trump threw dishes regularly. This is what Cassidy Hutchinson said. Trump didn't want to call off the rioters. Let them go. These are my people, right? Essentially. And then the two other things that I think were going to draw, well, if you'd heard all the hearings, you knew that these things were mentioned. Number one, that talk was beginning of mentioning the 25th president on the 25th amendment on that day. The 25th amendment, which was a bypass so that the vice president could declare that the president was unfit and could be removed. There was talk of that when the president would not act quickly to tell the crowd to go home. Finally, it was done reluctantly to tell the crowd to go home. If you recall that video where Trump says, "Oh, I love you, we love you." I'm telling you, forget criminality. Just think about whether or not you've seen something about Trump's behavior that says this man does not deserve to be president. Ever. Not in 2016, not in 2020, and certainly it's time for Republicans to say he is not the man for 2024. And there was one, Trump was so mad that Cassidy Hutchinson recalls how Trump routinely threw dishes at the wall, routinely would take a tablecloth and like be like the magician, who like rips the tablecloth from the top, except, all the food would go to the floor. He couldn't do it like a magician. And what's it remind you of? It's like a baby having a tantrum. That was Donald Trump. And I think the fallout of all the testimony today by Cassidy Hutchinson is to say, my God, we didn't really know it was this bad. I mean, how many books by Bob Woodward do you need? How many books by, all the books by the former aides? How many books do you need? I mean, I don't want to say I've read most of them. I read some of them. I've flipped through most of them. But then, I don't think I needed to know more. I was ready to say, yeah, Trump's not qualified. He's not fit to be president. But if you're a hanger-on, I think just go to C-SPAN, listen to Cassidy Hutchinson in her testimony, and as she describes all these things, and it is time, if you're a Republican, to stand up and have the courage of this 26-year-old aide who is now coming out publicly and telling everyone what it was like on the inside of the Trump administration, in the White House on January 6th. And it's just enough to make you say, oh my God, if you're a Republican, look, God love you. We can have differences. We can live as one in this great American democracy. I mean, surely we can. But one thing we can't have is a man who is unfit. I mean, this is part of this idea, peaceful transition of power. Obama goes, Trump comes in, Trump goes, Biden comes in. I mean, it was barely peaceful that last time with Biden. And it's time now for those people who haven't testified to come forward. Come forward now and testify and say, look, I'm a Republican and here's what happened. And I just got a major dose of courage because I saw what this 26-year-old woman did when she got up and told the committee and told the world just how badly Donald Trump acted on January 6th. That's what we needed to know. We got it. I don't know. It's good. The committee is going to have more hearings. This is the last for a few weeks. But this was an emergency hearing that they set because they had some momentum and they wanted to leave people with a sort of cliffhanger. What more? They also wanted to give Republicans who have yet to come forward to say anything. They've not responded. They have flirted with being called on the carpet by the committee, indictments, or they come in and they pled the fifth and say nothing. And I think maybe in the next few weeks you'll see a number of Republicans, even higher ranking than this 26-year-old woman, Cassidy Hutchinson, come forward. You'll see them come forward and say, okay, now's the time. I think now's the time. I think also now's the time for Donald Trump to say, just to release his hold on the Republican Party, where you have good Republicans who are just paralyzed. They're paralyzed. They cannot do the right thing. They don't want to go against Trump because they like the power and they'll go with the big lie. They won't go with the truth. They won't go with democracy. And they won't follow the path of a 26-year-old aide. But they should. They should follow the path of Cassidy Hutchinson because she acted like a real hero today. And I'll get to some of her statements directly. But, I mean, the big headline, really, as I said, is that we know that Trump knew he lost the election. That has been established by the committee, right? Attorney General Barr said it was BS, right? That Trump would think that he won. So we know he lost. We know he was trying to do something to make it appear as if he didn't lose, like tamper with ballots, put fake electors out there. And then came January 6th, which is to somehow block the counting of votes. I mean, and it's clear that the people who were part of that rally, a handful were armed, and it's proven Trump knew about it. And even after he knew about it, he wanted to build the crowd. And he wanted to go see them do their thing. He knew about the Hang Mike Pence chant. Did nothing about it. Said, yeah, come on, I want to go join that mob, he said. And then he was so enraged, we heard the testimony from Cassidy Hutchinson that he was in what they call the Beast, which is the presidential limousine. And he wanted to go to the Capitol. He wanted to join. He said, when his guy, his Secret Service guy said, no, we're going back to the White House from the rally. Trump said, I'm the effing president. I got to join my peeps. I got to be part of it. And he lunged. He went for the limo wheel. Trump. It's just another example of why he is unsuited to be president then and in 2024. So here's the whole thing about going back to the Capitol, right? From the rally. Remember, they were at the rally and successful rally, whipped up the frenzy. And instead of going to the Capitol, his people tried to direct him, meaning his inner sanctum, tried to direct him back to the White House. Pat Cipollini, the attorney, this came out today, talked to Cassidy Hutchinson. And here was their discussion.
I saw Mr. Cipollone right before I walked out onto West Exec that morning, and Mr. Cipollone said something to the effect of, please make sure we don't go up to the Capitol, Cassidy. Keep in touch with me. We're going to get charged with every crime imaginable if we make that movement happen.
So she's saying this like she understood that was her orders. Don't go to the Capitol. Don't go to the Capitol. And then we saw Trump lunging right for the wheel of his limo. When he realized they were going to take him to the Capitol, he wanted to go. He's the president. He's the effing president, right? So here were more conversations that corroborated that sense that Pat Cipollini should have known more, or should have done more, or did know more about what it meant if Trump went back to the Capitol after that speech, in the rally.
Having a private conversation with Pat late in the afternoon of the 3rd or the 4th.
So this is discussion before January 6th happened. They knew that we're going to have this rally, but no matter what, don't let Trump go back. So this was discussion beforehand.
That Pat was concerned it would look like we were obstructing justice or obstructing the electoral college count and I apologize for probably not being very firm with my legal terms here, but that it would look like we were obstructing what was happening on Capitol Hill, and he was also worried that it would look like we were inciting a riot or encouraging a riot to erupt on the Capitol, at the Capitol.
So this is part of the recorded testimony. It kept going back between Hutchinson's recorded testimony and her live testimony, where she appears with her virgin white jacket, which I guess is symbolic of she's the truth teller in all this. It was kind of striking to see this young woman get up there and say, here's how it went down. But so, I mean, the whole thing, though, is Pat Cipollini, who has not come forward to cooperate with. This is the White House's President Trump's, his lawyer. Pat Cipollini represented Trump in the impeachment trial. Pat Cipollini is not cooperating with the January 6th committee. I mean, he knows something, right? He's telling, is this maybe just the attorney boss telling the aide, hey, look, don't let Trump go in because we'll get charged with every crime. You'd figure it. Now, logic would have it that if he's talking like that to an aide, do you think he would have mentioned it to Trump? Because I think I would want my attorney to let me know that something was going on. If I did something, I would be liable, or I would screw things up legally if I went back. And Cipollini spelled it out for the aide. You think he'd spell it out for Trump? Hey, if you go back, they're going to bring in all these charges. It's going to look like you're inciting a riot. It's going to look like you're obstructing justice. You don't want that. Oh, yeah. Because remember, those are the two things that for criminality you need. You need, number one, intent. Number two, obstruction. And so another one of those things that come up, with Cassidy Hutchinson telling the story and putting it into context. This was a concern days before January 6th. They knew this was going to happen. The 3rd or 4th, she said, right? This was the discussion. And then, of course, on January 6th, it's not a good scene. And go to that part of the tape, because that's pretty damning. She's talking about, she goes from the rally, Cassidy Hutchinson. She goes from the rally back to the White House. And she returns in the motorcade after the president's speech. She goes to the White House.
When I returned to the White House, I walked upstairs towards the Chief of Staff's office, and I noticed Mr. Renato lingering outside of the office. Once we had made eye contact, he quickly waved me to go into his office, which was just across the hall from mine. When I went in, he shut the door, and I noticed Bobby Engel, who is the head of Mr. Trump's security detail, sitting in a chair, looking somewhat discombobulated and a little lost.
A little lost. This is because Ornado's another aide, but Bobby Engel, head of detail, was the guy who just essentially was attacked by Donald Trump as Trump lunged for the limo wheel to try to steer the limo to head to the Capitol. That's why Bobby Engel was looking discombobulated.
I looked at Tony and he had said, "Did you effing hear what happened in the Beast?"
Did you?
I said, "No."
Did you hear what effing happened in the Beast? This is the testimony of today.
Tony, I just got back. What happened? Tony proceeded to tell me that when the president got in the Beast, he was under the impression from Mr. Meadows that the off-the-record movement to the Capitol was still possible and likely to happen, but that Bobby had more information. So once the president had gotten into the vehicle with Bobby, he thought that they were going up to the Capitol, and when Bobby had relayed to him, we don't have the assets to do it, it's not secure, we're going back to the West Wing, the president had very strong, very angry response to that. Tony described him as being irate. The president said something to the effect of, "I'm the effing president, take me up to the Capitol now." To which Bobby responded, "Sir, we have to go back to the West Wing." The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, "Sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel. We're going back to the West Wing. We're not going to the Capitol." Mr. Trump then used his free hand to lunge towards Bobby Engel. And when Mr. Ornato had recounted this story to me, he had motioned towards his clavicles.
Motion toward his clavicles, like he was maybe physically attacking Bobby Engel. That was the testimony of Cassidy Hutchinson.
And was Mr. Engel in the room as Mr. Ornato told you this story?
This is Liz Cheney, Representative Liz Cheney, who's in the committee. She's asking just for verification, corroboration. She said, Mr. Engel, Mr. Ornato, they were in the room. What'd they say?
He was.
Did Mr. Engel correct or disagree with any part of the story from Mr. Ornato?
Mr. Engel did not correct or disagree with any part of the story.
Did Mr. Engel or Mr. Ornato ever after that tell you that what Mr. Ornato had just said was untrue?
Neither Mr. Ornato nor Mr. Engel told me ever that it was untrue.
So there's I heard that and my ears were exploding. Like, oh my God, here's Trump doing a kind of alleged assault on his Secret Service team, the head of detail, because he really wanted to go to see that January 6th mob do its thing. And what was that thing? Well, who knows? They were armed. They came close. They got into the Capitol. They wanted to stop that vote. I mean, Trump was like an arsonist who had set a fire and wanted to get up close to see what he had created. That's what it sounded like to me. And I know that some of you out there have taken a kind of an arm's length kind of approach to this, saying like, oh, we've heard all of this. You love Trump, you hate Trump, you already have your views for him. Nothing they say, nothing they can say is going to change my mind, you might say. I mean, I could see if you're anti-Trump, you could say that. Nothing. If you're anti-Trump, nothing they can say will change my mind. But if you're pro-Trump, when you say nothing they can say at the hearings will change my mind, this is the hearing where your mind changes. This is the hearing where you say, well, yeah, Donald Trump came undone here. Donald Trump was not acting presidential. He was not acting rationally. He was acting like a I want to be respectful. I also want to be original. He was acting like the toddler king. I mean, people have referenced it to kings and babies, infants, but maybe he's a little bigger than an infant. Toddlers throw tantrums. So was it the toddler king? Was it the tyranny of the toddler king here on display? I'm telling you, these were the hearings to listen to, and they're going out to the world, and it just shows you that you think you know, but you don't know. You think we got it all. We got a bit. And mind you, we've had a swing where all the best investigative reporters who had access have taken a swing at this story, right? From the Times and the Post and, everyone who had access on the inside. But I don't think anyone reported this, because this required someone on the inside who saw and knew, and who would no longer play the silent game. No longer play the game that said, well, as long as Trump's in power, and as long as we maintain that kind of Trump code, we're good. And that's the case until someone realizes, for the good of the country, for the good of American democracy, you just have to tell the truth. And so here it was. And wouldn't you know, the people who probably are the three people who are probably the most endangered, I'd say probably Mark Meadows, because he isn't. You see, his aide is telling how Mark Meadows was kind of nonchalant to the whole thing, because I think both Meadows and Giuliani all just assumed, hey, I'm working for the top guy. If I get a pardon, all this gets washed away. It's almost like the Catholic confessional kind of justification. Well, I could do it, and I'll go to confession the next day. I'll be all right. Not that easy. And I think the fact that Giuliani asked for a pardon, the fact that Mark Meadows asked for a pardon, all of it corroborated by Meadows' aide, Cassidy Hutchinson, shows that was the insurance plan, that they could do whatever they wanted because Trump was in charge and he would give them pardons. Of course, he didn't. So you can imagine that some of them feel a little double-crossed. Or, how many crosses are there? Maybe you should just believe in the truth, like Cassidy Hutchinson. So, just an amazing bit of testimony. I just kept thinking, here's this woman, what is she going to say? I was a little reluctant to, not reluctant, that's not the word. I wasn't sure that she'd say anything today, but when you know that they were going to, they had this big special hearing, they were concerned about this witness's safety, this has got to be something new, different, something that will really be just change things. As they like to say, the inflection point where things go up a notch. And I think things did get that jump up today. You hear about Trump's knowledge of all this, of the rioters, how they were armed, how he wanted to go. You hear how he fought with the head of his Secret Service detail in the Beast, in the presidential limousine. You hear the stories about how Trump threw dishes and how Trump just acted like a baby having a tantrum. I think it's time. I think it's time for all the Republicans out there to understand, if you're a Republican, there is no reason to defend this man any further with your silence. In fact, I think now is time for Republicans, I mean, not just the never Trumpers, but just the Trump loyalists, to just come together for the good of the party, come together for the good of the country, and just understand that Donald Trump is the worst thing for the Republicans. And, you know, this is one thing that I found striking about seeing a 26-year-old woman like Cassidy Hutchinson get up there. Because just think of the last couple days, how the politics of the right, the politics of the MAGA Trumpers has really been anti-woman. I mean, that was a Trump court that took away the guaranteed right of, or the constitutional right to an abortion in the United States. That was a Trump court. And I think when you take that, I think the image of a young woman, 26, standing up for our country, who's conservative, a conservative Republican, the coincidence of that is striking and telling. That I just think it should be a sign for people who have been holding out, because Trump means power. Trump does not mean power. Trump means corruption. Trump is anti-democratic, anti-democracy. So I want to play one other bit from Cassidy. So this is Cassidy Hutchinson talking about the violence that she saw. It's like Trump throwing food, right?
He motioned for me to come in and then pointed towards the front of the room near the fireplace mantle and the TV, where I first noticed there was ketchup dripping down the wall and there's a shattered porcelain plate on the floor. The valet had articulated that the president was extremely angry at the Attorney General's AP interview and had thrown his lunch against the wall, which was causing them to have to clean up. So I grabbed a towel and started wiping the ketchup off of the wall to help the valet out. And he said something to the effect of, he's really ticked off about this. I would stay clear of him for right now. He's really, really ticked off about this right now.
And Ms. Hutchinson, was this the only instance that you are aware of where the president threw dishes?
It's not.
And are there other instances in the dining room that you recall where he expressed his anger?
There were several times throughout my tenure with the chief of staff that I was aware of him either throwing dishes or flipping the tablecloth. to let all the contents of the table go onto the floor and likely break or go everywhere.
And Ms. Hutchinson, Attorney General Barr described to the committee the president's angry reaction when he finally met with President Trump. Let's listen.
And I said, look, I know that you're dissatisfied with me, and I'm glad to offer my resignation. And he pounded the table very hard. Everyone sort of jumped, and he said, accept it.
Mr. Chairman, I reserve.
Gentlewoman reserves. The chair requests those in the hearing room to remain seated.
So that was just more indications of Trump's anger. And like I said, if you miss the hearings because you're at work or you're doing something else, I understand. But definitely, this is the one you want to see, especially if you are among the persuadable. Because, like I said, if you're anti-Trump, nothing that can be said will make you pro-Trump, right? I mean, you're already, they already have me. It doesn't mean I'm closed-minded. It just means that how much worse can it be, right? I mean, it's pretty bad. How much worse can it be? Well, you hear it coming from the mouth of someone who still has a sense of the ideal sense of, I'm here as a public servant. I'm here to serve my country. She's a Republican. She's conservative. Okay. She's probably pro-life. Okay. But she knows the truth. She knows what happened, and she knows the lie. And there are times in the testimony when she says as much. All this for a lie. And she has a hard time with it. And to hear her talk about it, if you're a Republican, it'll make you say, this man never again should be the standard bearer for anything. For anything. And certainly, he can put his brand on Trump steaks and Trump this and Trump that. Yeah. But not on the United States of America. Not on our democracy. I think that's the lesson for today. Clearly. And I don't have that tape queued up. I was trying to find it. Because when you hear her say how frustrating and how disappointed she was, that was sad. It was like, I'm watching this woman with the white suit coat talking about how the Republicans broke her heart. The Republicans broke her sense of public service, her sense of democracy, because what the Republicans did was show her the full corruption of the Trump administration. And that she had to share with the rest of us. So that's today's thought. That's today's news. And I'll just quickly check with the headlines. Yeah, New York Times online. Trump sought to join January 6th mob. Tried to loosen security, knowing of potential for violence. Aide testifies. That was the New York Times. The Post. What's the Post say? The Post headline: Trump wanted armed mob to march to Capitol, sought to join, aide says. So, just a number of the bombshells from today. Check them out. Check them out. Go to C-SPAN. You can hear them. I think it's good when you hear them, because it will it will make you, it'll make you feel maybe the first time a sense of freedom from that Trump hold that he's had on some good Republicans out there. And I count among them some friends I know who are just can't talk to him. I know I had a brother-in-law who finally came to the idea of the truth maybe about 6 months or 8 months ago, finally. But I still have some friends who are just like, they are pro-Trumpers. We don't talk politics. And I know there are Filipinos who are pro-Trumpers. But the next question is just to ask yourself, what of these Republicans who are intransigent, who cannot move, who will not, and they want to be leaders because they see Trump as a leader. They see Trump as he's the coattail I want to choose to fly with. Don't vote for them. Don't vote for them. So other things that have there's one columnist I like to read. She points out the 5 things. So Meadows and Trump knew there could be violence on January 6th and enabled the mob. There's some maybe some intent and some obstruction. Those are the criminal elements. Trump's advisors knew that Trump could be exposed to criminal charges. Well, Pat Cipollini did say to Hutchinson, hey, you go to the Capitol and they'll tie everything to us. Trump went ballistic when he told he couldn't go to the Capitol. That comes out clear in Hutchinson's testimony. Trump ringleaders asked for pardons. We covered that. Other Trump aides are cowards and dissemblers. Well, cowards, certainly. I mean, this is the last, this hearing is the 6th and last. And now let's hope the next few weeks in the summer heat, some people will have their come to Jesus moments and they'll understand that what a great democracy needs to be. It needs to be transparent. It needs to be based in truth. And they need to accept that Trump is exposed. I mean, Trump has been exposed in all these books, the Woodward books, the New York Times, the Jonathan Martin book. He's been exposed from daily reports to the book, the books from the insiders. But now we have someone who was right there on January 6th. Her testimony is out there. I don't really see, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I want to hope that this has an impact. I want to hope that this is going to make people see that Trump is not the standard bearer of the Republican Party. He does not have a hold on you. And yet, I know it's like every day there's like, here's a pro-Trump. How can you be a pro-Trump candidate? You can be a conservative. You can be a Republican. But a Trump-led Republican, and maybe it's because that's the way the people are, but I would like to think our electorate is smarter, that the people are smarter. Let's hope. Let's hope, because these last couple of weeks have been tough. If you are rooting for our democracy, they've been tough. But today's testimony by young 26-year-old Cassidy Hutchinson, there's hope. All right, that's it for today's show. Check out my columns on ALDEF, aaldef.org/blog. I was going to talk about Fire Island because I did not go to the any gay pride parade this past weekend. I usually go because I'm an ally, not because I'm gay, but I'm an ally and a friend, and I have family members, friends and family members who are gay. But, I'm still a little skittish about public, not public displays of emotion. I'm still a little skittish about these big parades, but I have been to many a gay pride parade in San Francisco. I went to one in New York a few years ago. So this year, my wife and I stayed home and we watched Fire Island on Hulu. And a rousing applause for both Bowen Yang and Joel Kim Booster. And I forget the director's name, but he's Asian American. So it's billed as a triple Asian American gay Lollapalooza, right? The director, the writer, the executive producer, Joel Kim Booster, Bowen Yang, breakout star from Saturday Night Live. And I just, I think it's going to live. This is going to be a thing. I mean, this is the thing about films. You can go back, you can say, oh, what about that film? What about it? And even like 10 years from now, people will access this again. It's not like the written word or something you experience live. It's like, here's a film. Let's go to Netflix. Is Netflix going to be around in 10 years? Whatever they have. But they'll see it again and it'll be a marker. And who knows, in 10 years, maybe our society will be so far advanced. It'll be LGBTQ++, and we won't have discrimination, and we'll just live in this free kind of society. Although after these last 5 days or so, right? Clarence Thomas talking about the 14th Amendment protections being challenged. Who knows? But that's why I'm glad that Joel Kim Booster did it. This is a mark in time. You can watch this and say, yeah, this is where we are in America. And look, I'm not saying it's for everybody. Fire Island's a little racy. All right, look, it's not like watching Pornhub, although how would I know? I've never been on Pornhub. I just know, I hear people talking about it. But, I mean, if you are gay, you embrace this movie. If you are straight and an ally, you embrace it and say, yeah, nothing in this is shocking. But there are going to be people who will be shocked by some of the things they'll see. They say, oh, it's a little too graphic. Two guys kissing? Oh, they do worse than that. But it's not graphic. Some people might say. I mean, it's on for a second. It's not alarming. But I found that it's the kind of thing we need to experience if we are going to be more accepting, be more loving toward each other, be more tolerant. And the intolerance is making a comeback, especially if they're going to look at 14th Amendment privacy rights and say, does this really apply to LGBTQ? Well, of course it does, but they're going to challenge. If they challenged abortion, I mean, they say, well, there's no word that says, abortion in the Constitution. No, but the right to privacy is implicit in the idea of the pursuit of life and liberty. Means that my business is none of yours, and vice versa. And that was the beauty of watching an entertainment like Fire Island. I mean, I've heard of Fire Island for years. I have a high school buddy who, I'm always like rekindling friendships from 20, 30 years ago. Just bump into people and say, oh, yeah. And a friend of mine lives in New York, said, oh, I'm going out to Fire Island. And I'd only remembered that, oh, yeah, from Johnny Carson, right? He used to joke about Fire Island all the time. But it's a little bitty island out there just south of Long Island. It's almost like I don't know, it's like a barrier island in a way. But I'm glad I saw it. And it's not, I mean, I think for some people, you might say, well, just sort of substitute yourself. Instead of seeing gay people, see straight people. And then how would you like it? And then we're all kind of the same. We all have these same sort of, there are dumb straight people who want to get drunk and party all the time. I mean, gays don't have the market cornered on that. I mean, there's ways in which you can see it to say, oh yeah, they're no different than us in terms of what we want, what we desire, right? That was the whole idea about life, the pursuit of life and happiness, life and liberty. Privacy is part of that. And we should honor that. That was what the 14th Amendment is about. So I recommend you watch Fire Island in the remaining days of Pride, just as a reminder that we are all in this one big happy place together, and we have a lot of common interests. We may do things differently with different holes, as it were, but we're all one. I mean, that's not trite. It is true. We all have the same instincts toward love. And it's funny, too. It's funny. Margaret Cho, very funny in this. Joel Kim Booster, the mastermind. And there's a character named Will. Oh, God. He's a Filipino guy, and there's one line in the movie where Filipino just comes out at, they're going through, what kind of Asian are you? And a white guy who's trying to pick up on this guy, Will, say, oh, you're Filipino. You're Filipino, aren't you? Turns out he's, I think only half Filipino. But the important half in this one. So anyway, Fire Island, it's a good Pride Month entertainment. Thought-provoking and a tremendous, a milestone entertainment. So congratulations to Joel Kim Booster and to Bowen Yang, who again, show-stopping. So there, I fulfilled my obligation. I said I was going to talk about Fire Island, and I did. I didn't let January 6th take over, although it did today. I just couldn't help think about, I hope the people who need to watch this, the persuadables, or the people who believe they're not persuadable, I hope they watch this because they need to understand the true nature of Donald Trump. All right, so that's it for today's show. Catch my column on the ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog. I write about the abortion. I write about the abortion ruling. I write about the fallout. I also write about how the Philippines I mean, it's interesting that, you know, the Philippines its democracy was made sort of in the image of America. And with the reversal of Roe, the United States is becoming more like the Philippines. Oh, come on, Emil, you're crazy. We don't have as many mangoes. No, it's not in terms of the mango population. Oh, well, come on, Emil. We can't be like the Philippines. We're not tropical like the Philippines. No, it's more like the Philippines because when you leave it up to the states to concoct their own laws against abortion, which in many states, as many as half of them, or more than half, are going to be really fundamentalist, pro-life kind of language in the constitutions, the state constitutions. All you got to do, go to my column, see what the Constitution of the Philippines is. You know, the sanctity of life. You know, you get that kind of language, and you know, we're back in theocratic third world country, which is what the Philippines kind of is. Although here's the ironic thing: abortions are illegal and have been for more than 100 years. Recodified in the Constitution in 1987. Has that stopped abortion? Hell no. The World Health Organization estimates like 800,000 a year. Abortions. Because most pregnancies are unwanted, or most pregnancies are just, untenable in terms of, economic interests of all involved. Abortion is the answer, and that's a ton of abortions for the Philippines, 800,000. That's an estimate from the WHO. I'm just saying that, isn't that ironic that our colony, with the reversal of Roe v. Wade, the United States is more like our colony than our colony is like the United States. Or you might say, oh, well, our colony, the Philippines, declared its democracy, but also, well, I think the point is they made laws that make abortion illegal, and yet it doesn't stop people from having an abortion. But it just means that the abortions they have are unsafe and illegal and are a greater threat to human life than legal abortion would be. And that's really the reality. And it's a shameful one. So read my column on ALDEF, aaldef.org/blog. Also the Inquirer.net, which is a Philippine-based website of the newspaper, the Philippine Inquirer. Check me out on my YouTube channel. Or also, let's see, where else? Facebook at emilguillermo.media. Actually, that is the preferred thing. emilguillermo.media. A lot of people say, we don't do Facebook anymore. Do Facebook. It's like, I don't know. I would rather do Facebook instead of TikTok. I mean, they're all bad, I guess. Facebook is among the most compromised. But TikTok, what the Chinese know about you. You say, Emil, the Chinese already know how many pets I have. They already know my consumer peccadillos. I mean, what do I have to be afraid of? Well, once again, privacy, right? 14th Amendment. All right. So we usually end our program with a little taste of the loving kindness meditation, because I find that usually when it comes to what's a quick fix, Emil, when you want to feel good about yourself, but I can't because I'm not good. I'm not this. I'm not. You're not. Well, are you feeling some shame? Because if you are, this is where this loving kindness meditation comes in, because you need a little self-love. You need to apply a little self-compassion, a little loving kindness toward yourself. So, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, live. Catch the live stream if you can. If not, catch it on amok.com on the replay or on Facebook. Till next time. I mean this. Mahal. Gita.